Time to fight fear with faith. Jody Paar is a survivor who is no longer staying silent. She and her guest will fuel you up so you too can fight fear, uplifting and inspirational stories that will rock you to your core. We don't tiptoe around the truth, we steamroll it in a bold way. This is your life, and now is the time to start living it. Get ready for the Faith Over Fear podcast with Jody Paar. Now, welcome Jody Paar to inspire you.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Faith Over Fear with Jody Paar. I am so excited about this next guest we have today. Guys, this woman is inspiration. My shirt, Be Inspired, and she inspires so many people. Her name is B. Smith. She is a best-selling author, a public speaker, and a mental health advocate, and she will tell you more about that. We were sitting side by side at an amazing conference in Oklahoma called the Collective Conference. Mallory Albaline does that. I was just completely blown away when I got to meet her. And here's the thing, God aligns everything perfectly. And I know he aligned her to sit right beside me at this conference, and it was a blessing. So B, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to you, girl, and let you tell us your story about how fear became faith with you.
Oh, wow. So how fear became faith. Man,
let's start with fear. When did you first feel fear in your life?
when did I first really feel fear?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I guess you could say like all through my life, I was never really fearless. I was fearless. I don't think I really knew what fear was. I'd kind of tackle things as they came. Straight A student, you know, everybody has trauma in their life. I had trauma in my life. Straight A student, pretty much my brother stayed in trouble so much, you know, I pretty much stayed out of trouble as much as possible. I would say my biggest day with fear, it came after surviving a suicide attempt and deciding that I was going to come out and share my story. I believe that's when fear entered my life for the first time, really fear. Because before, you know, I was suffering from major depressive disorder, which I didn't know what it was for the longest, you know, and I guess maybe fear was there for the whole journey.
Right. So you said you had some trauma. Are you comfortable telling us a little about what that was? And the reason we do that is because we want our listeners to know a lot of time the enemy will make them think they're isolated and they're alone in what they go through. And so a lot of times we talk about that. If you're not comfortable doing that, I totally understand that too.
No. We'll talk about it. You know, it's in my book. You know, when I was 6, you know, I just kind of learned life was a little bit different, you know, and it's a little bit more powerful because my dad is like actually here with me today. You know, when I was 6, I learned that my dad wasn't my dad. And that was like one of the first things. And then, you know, there was in my preteen years, there was molestation, so that different trauma, you know, just the things you put in the back pocket and you say, okay, you survive it and then you like deal with it, you put it there. That was a big thing. And I think like I said, I don't really think fear was part of my life until major depressive disorder came into my life, because when that began to happen, I never really dealt with it. That's why I said I don't really think fear came into the forefront until I actually went to therapy, because I never dealt with anything.
Right.
Like all those different things in my childhood, dealing with the stuff with my paternal father versus my father, my dad, dealing with the molestation situation, or just the situation in my home, not dealing with that kind of thing. We didn't really deal with anything, so there wasn't much to be afraid of when you don't deal with it. If you have a family, we kind of like what happened in our house just kind of stayed in our house.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I was right the first time. Fear came when I really had to deal with my problems, when I attempted suicide and did not die. And I began to have to really deal with those things. That's when fear comes. And that's when fear is like, so who do I tell? Because you feel like you're alone. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, you know, the doctor saying, you know, you're not here for no reason. Everybody that ends up where you are, they're here for a reason. And for us to get to the bottom of why you tried to kill yourself, we need to understand what happened. And I think that's when fear came in. My first real date with fear was the day that I went to therapy, and I would see all the people, talking about their problems. So imagine you're in this big group therapy room. I'm in this mental health facility. I've attempted suicide. I didn't die. And even then, I would say, I'm not those people. I'm not those people.
Mm-hmm.
I would listen to their stories. I'm not those people. And so you come in every day. So at first, I was just like, eventually, I was going to talk because that's what you had to do to get out. So my first date with fear was like, what am I going to say? My name is Benitria. I suffer from major depressive disorder. And then they would ask you about the things that happened in your childhood and your relationships. And so I think that I was fearful about coming out and just sharing it.
Sure.
But I wanted to get out. I wanted to get out of the health facility. And I had made a promise to God that when I did attempt and I realized that my life was in danger, I was like, Lord, I'm sorry. If you give me another chance, I said, I will share your grace, your mercy, and I will share my story. Well, when I made that promise, I wasn't scared. I wanted my life. And so,
Yeah.
so I was willing to do whatever it was to get back to my family. And so
I just
after
got chills
coming,
when you said that, by the way. That totally gave me chills all over my body when you just said
yeah,
that.
because I was fighting for my life. I talk to people every day in my advocacy, and they didn't do nearly what I did. Same method, less. They're not here. And so I'm like, what? That promise I made to God was that I would share. I wouldn't just go through this and not share. And so I would keep going to therapy every day. And finally, of course, it comes around to my time. But before it came around to my time, it seemed like every day there would be one person with a story that maybe had like a little bit of what I've been through.
Right.
And
Yeah.
then maybe the next day it would be somebody with a story. Oh my God, like I had the best stepdad. I don't even call him stepdad. He's my dad. I had the best stepdad ever. But I remember people would talk about their family members, and they were like, well, my mom got married and this happened to me. And I'm over there like,
Mm-hmm.
what the heck? Or,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I never had to worry about anything like that. It's like, man, I was like, everything I thought that I didn't have, I started to realize I was fortunate. A lot of times we look at our situations and we think it's just us, and we think that we're just so bad off. But I'm telling you, when you sit around a room and you start to hear other people, oh my God, I begin to thank God for the things that I had. And so I begin to share. And sharing in group therapy, that became easier. When I began to talk, that became easier. So there was no more fear there. But I think that was the first day I was just kind of scared, because I was like, I don't want to tell these people my business. I don't
Right.
want to share this. But then there's that promise I made on my deathbed, that would have been my deathbed, that I would share my story. And so I began to share, go to group therapy, do what I needed to do to get back to my family. And so I get out and I'm going back to work. I'm going back to work like nothing ever happened. Like I had insurance. I think that was the biggest lie anybody could live. We were all living a lie, basically my whole family, because nobody said anything about where I had been. I'm in a facility for 40 days, almost 40 days, and nobody says anything about where I've been. And I thought I could just kind of go back to life and live
Mm-hmm.
normal, but it
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't clicking. Nothing was working.
Right.
Marriage was going back to crap again. Things on my job are going back to crap. And then God reminded me, hello, you promised me that if I saved your life, that you would come out. And on the second date with fear, I think these came in dates, like the first date, second date. So
Yeah. Yeah.
the second date with fear was when I had to really, really ante up on that promise. Like I had to live that promise. And I was like, Lord, how do I do this? Because I'm back at work. I have a high profile job. I have 2 teams in 2 different states that I'm covering. I've got a lot of responsibility.
Right.
And so I was like, how do I do this, and still keep my job? How do I do this and people don't talk about me? Because I'm like, once I tell people what's happened, they're going to think I'm crazy. They're going to think, something's wrong with me. Maybe I'll lose my job. I had a lot of fear going on because I had a lot of things. Mental health just was not the conversation during that time. And we're not talking about a long time ago. We're talking 2012 people. So mental health still was not, I was glad I was getting better. But then there was that promise.
Right.
And so, but I was still fearful about what would my family say? What would my job say? What would my friends say? I was so fearful about all these different things, coming out. And so I was like, Lord, how? Never ask God how, because I'm here to tell you, if you done made a promise and you ask him how, the how is coming.
Yep.
And so I'm in this group, entrepreneur group, because I started I started event planning business, and that was really fun. I even did that before I got sick, and I got in this entrepreneur group. And so one day this offer comes, it says, share your story.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this looks like a good opportunity. And so the lady that was doing the book project, she walks up to me at one of her events. I go to one of her events because, I'm empowered. I'm like, I start hanging with the crew, and I started liking what they were doing. And so I go to Epic Conference, and I'm working social media because that's just what I do. And so right before the end of the conference, she walks up to me. She pitches out, hey, we've got this opportunity coming for 18 women that just want to share their stories, just being bold and helping someone else. And so she had kind of knew a little bit about my story. She walks up to me, she puts her hand on my shoulder, and she says, author. And I'm like, oh, so what that mean? I go share my story. And so the first thing I do is I get on the phone and I call my husband. And so that's my second real date with fear. And I say, I got an opportunity today. And he's like, what's that? I said, I got an opportunity to share my story. He's like, share my story about what? And I said, I think it's time for me to share my story about the suicide attempt, where I was, what I was going through, and maybe it will help somebody else. Because through therapy, I learned that I wasn't alone. I learned that millions of Americans suffer from major depressive disorder. Yes. I also learned that more than 40,000 Americans die by suicide each year. So what I was suffering with, I wasn't alone, but nobody that looked like me. I didn't see anybody that looked like me talking about it. I didn't see anybody like me going to the forefront saying, hey, this is an issue. It's a public health issue. And whenever you see a hole in the market, a lot of times it's not for somebody else to fix the problem. It's for you to get out there and share your perspective. And so I talked to my husband. I said, and this is exactly what I said. I said, but everybody's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
And, I still believe in that day was a big day of freedom for him, because, there were still questions like, where your wife been for 40 days? You're like, you just don't pop up missing and then you just back.
Right.
Like, yeah, right. Even at work, there was speculation. People begin to gossip when they don't know. Family member just mad because they ain't heard from you. Folks think I'm acting funny. And when actually I'm in here fighting for my life and trying to get better to get back to my family. And so I was just like, I'm just going to share it. And so the name of the project was called Fabulous New Life. So I wrote my story.
Love that. I love that title so much. And,
yep.
And I just want to real quick touch on that, about a lot of people walk around and they're carrying these secrets. I did it for years. And I also,
you too. Oh, God.
I attempted suicide, and thank God it did not go through twice with myself. And it's like, people don't discuss this. They don't talk about this. They don't, you know what I mean? And so that's why I love these podcasts, because there's so many people that can hear this and know I'm not alone. I'm not at that point where I just want to give up. I just want to quit. Like, if I could go back and talk to that girl, I could be like, girl, just hold on. Just wait for what God's going to do in your life. Just wait. And so I'm getting all excited. I'm spitting. But that's what I want. That's what I want people to understand, is just wait. Like, it feels like it's the end, but it's not. And a lot of times what feels like the end is the absolute beginning of something beautiful. And so go ahead.
Wow, that's beautiful. That almost sounds like the passage in the book. And that was my second day with fear, was when I realized people were going to know. And so I called my husband and I talked to him on the phone. He's like, okay, I want to see more information on the project. And he was like, you know what? It's about time. And so that's when I began to write. And so when I began to write about it, I think it's still Fabulous New Life Volume 2. I've written other stuff, but I still think that that's probably the most beautiful, eloquent, it's probably the best piece I'm ever going to write in my life, because I believe there was a particular covering over that.
Yeah, I believe that.
The covering was the promise. And I often hear people say, I've never read anything about suicide be so beautifully written. And so, I believe that God covered me like with every word, that it would be in truth, and that it would be in love, and that it would be to heal someone. And I was still shamed. So even when I agreed to do it, so a lot of times we do things and we're scared. I was still scared. And so, April knew I was scared. She said, this is what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to put your story in the very back. That way, as we bring out different authors, until you're ready. I know you did this while you're not ready, but she was bringing out, like, doing interviews with the different authors and everything. And she's like, I'm going to put it in the back. She said, we have 18 stories. You'll be number 18. I'll put it in the back. If they never make it to the back of the book, they just never read it. And you know what? You knew that you did what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to share your story. She said it would definitely reach who it's supposed to reach. And for some reason, being in the back, that made me feel comfortable. I was like, oh, it's in the back. It made me feel good. I don't know if that's just the way she sold it to me, but it made me feel good. I was like, oh, good. I say, half people don't read the books they get anyway. I was like, put it in the back. I felt comfortable with that.
Yeah.
Girl.
People read the back of the book, don't they?
So let me tell you who read the back of the book.
Tell me.
The book wasn't even out like a good, I don't know. The book came out in December. By that March, I had TBN had reached out to me.
Oh,
praise the Lord!
Wow.
Praise the Lord! I was like, okay, so why is Praise the Lord contacting me? I'm like, this is so weird. I was like, Trinity Broadcasting Network. And the producer was like, yeah. They were like, we read your story in Fabulous New Life, and we want you to come into the studio and film an episode of Praise the Lord to talk about suicide prevention.
Girl, wow.
I was like, but it was in the back of the book. You never know who it's going to help. So remember, my intentions with it was to help somebody, but I was still scared. Still the stigma, surrounding it and just different things like that. I was just scared to step out. But I stepped out, I wrote the story, and it was just a snippet. It was a story about that night and just kind of what led up to it, different things like that. And I was able to go on to the show.
That's incredible.
And really, I believe that day I became a suicide prevention advocate. And like, even before the show ended, the host was like, before we leave, we always leave with the word of prayer. He was like, but today I want to do something different. We're still going to close with the word of prayer. He said, but I want you to pray. I was like, and this is live TV. They filming, right? Lights on. Yeah, I'm sweating like a hoochie mom in church, Lord Jesus. And so he said, I want you to pray. And I want you to pray over that soul that was once like you, that somebody that's suffering from mental illness, or somebody that's going through that trauma or that situation and they can't get out and they feel like this is the end. He goes, I want you to pray a prayer for them. And we joined hands, and on national television, I began to pray.
It's beautiful.
Out of all the television interviews I've ever had, my dad's mom, she said she was actually sleeping. She said she was sitting in the chair, should have been gone to bed. And she says, I woke up and I saw my granddaughter. She said, I saw you. Wow. She said, oh my gosh. She said, what a beautiful testimony.
Absolutely.
And it answered so many questions for her, not through a conversation with me and her. This is my dad's mom. Not through a conversation with me and her, But that interview, that television interview reached my grandma, and whatever I couldn't say to her in that moment, in that prayer, there started to come healing for my family. Everything that I was afraid of, maybe being judged or maybe them being still angry with me. My grandmother showed me nothing but love. And she told me that was probably one of the most best episodes that she ever watched. And she said, it wasn't because it was you. She said, I'm glad it was you. She said, because it helped me understand. And that's when I learned, oh crap, I can't be scared to talk about this, because if this can heal my family, how many other families out there are going through this? How many other families are torn apart? How many other families have lost someone by suicide and they just still got all these questions? And so from that point on, I knew this. I may be scared, but it can't stop me.
You got to go on the other side of your comfort zone, girl. And that's where faith is waiting. That is, I mean, just think if you would have sat in your fear and would not put your story even in the back of the book, if you would have been like, nope, I don't want people, I can't do it. Because you know the enemy wants you to do that. He wanted you to be afraid and to be fearful and not want to put it there. But then that little voice was like, oh, well, if it's in the back of the book, it's all good. And then by you doing that, look at the doors that God has opened for you, because he knew all this when you were in your mom's womb. He knew all this was going to happen for you when you made that.
Okay, so now I am not going to cry, because now I see that with everything that's happened over these last couple of weeks. It was, and someone told me a long time ago, matter of fact, it was the host. He said, you were never meant to die. Nope. It was meant for you to survive, for you to be here. And he said that promise you made, that was just my heart. That was just God hearing my heart. But God had a plan for me all along.
Yes. And I'll tell you something else. And I had to realize this myself, is when I was trying to take myself out, there was praying people that kept me from taking
like my grandma, my mom.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yes.
My aunt, I still think about, she died when I was over in Iceland, but maybe a few weeks before she passed away, I remember she sent me a message through Facebook Messenger, because like I tell you, my family was like, it was like I had blocked people and all kind of stuff, whatever I had to do to keep my peace and to heal. But she sent me, we had unblocked each other, and she sent me a message, and she said, my niece, I am so proud of you. I look at you and I'm proud of you and I love you. And it was the most simple message. She let me know, I'm watching you, I see you, and I love you. And I think, just the healing that came from that, had she passed on and maybe we never repaired, I just think my family just didn't understand. Why is Benidra not coming around? Why is she not here? They didn't understand that I was sick. And so by me opening up my mouth and sharing, had I died, it would have left my family with so much confusion and pain and hurt and unresolved feelings and resentment. And I hope these words are touching somebody, because that very well could have been the case, but thank God it wasn't.
Right. Amen to that. Yes, definitely. Definitely. Wow, that is so good. And and I understand exactly where you're coming from, because no one knew my story till 23 years later when God told me to tell it. I mean, my own mom did not know. And when she read my book, and that's how my story, it was just easier for me to say, hey, you want to know what happened to me? Read my book. Because that way it's easier for me to tell strangers than my own family. And I think that you can definitely relate to that.
But yeah, why is that?
I don't know the answer to that, but I know that that's true, because my same thing. It's like I just didn't tell anybody. And I think it's because the enemy puts those lies in our head of rejection, of shame, of guilt, of, oh, what is this person going to think? And what's that person going to think? And whenever you become a warrior of God, like you are, then you're like, I don't care what people are going to say, and I don't care what people are going to talk about, because I know I'm doing the right thing, and that's sharing my story so people know they're not alone. And I can only imagine how many lives have been saved because of your courage and strength.
Yeah. That was a beginning of a journey, Um, just the fear of the stigma. It's big, and the fear of people rejecting you even after knowing, but you still have to do it. I still have had people that still reject me after knowing, but you know what? Oh, well.
Oh, well's right. So
Because I made a
tell us
promise
the
to
faith
God.
part. Tell us what you're up to now. Like from that moment on TBN, tell us, where did it go from there?
Faith on steroids. It's like faith on steroids. Like a train wreck. It's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming fast. It's like it was, but good for a good thing. And after sharing that story, because that was only a snippet, I was inspired to write my own book. I said, it's not so much for me to tell people about what happened, and it's wonderful to praise God and thank God that I'm still alive. But I would start to do live streams, and so I started my advocacy on Periscope. I would have a topic of the day, do something to inspire people and share with them. And people would keep asking me, like, how do you stay happy? How do you stay joyful? How do you forgive? How do you keep the past from keeping you from moving forward? And that's when I got inspired to write this book.
Yes.
And it's called, you have this one. It's called Be Inspired, Practical Steps for Living a Life Full of Joy. And see that joy on there being so big and bold and red? That's like the blood of Jesus, but that joy right there, it's bold for a reason. And I wrote down all the things that helped me to get there, and how do I stay mentally healthy? Because a lot of people, what I notice is that when you get out of the facility, there's not a lot of support for you. You might go to therapy, you see a psychiatrist, but how do you help people not even get to this point? And so that's when I wrote this book. And then faith just kind of went on steroids. Like, I spoke at Duke University. Like, I got like universities called like Duke, and then I'm doing more television interviews. And then I start to do monthly mental health segments in my local community. And then I moved to live events. And then I began to serve on boards for like the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. I began to work with the National Association for Mental Health. And so all these different things just started coming together from one little step, writing one story. I don't even think it was 3,000 words. And just putting that testimony out there has made me a beacon of light and hope, and it has given my life purpose. And so that's where the faith steps in, and just trusting that God would take care of me. I never seen any of the stuff that happens today. I never saw it before then. I just know that I made a promise to God, and I knew, my mom and dad taught me very well, when you make a vow to God, you don't take it back. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to take it back, but who knew that in that obedience, there was a blessing to my life. Yes. It blesses my life. It blesses my life to see the families that come forth, and the people that I'll never even meet. I had dreams of traveling the world. I had dreams of being on television. I had dreams of writing books. And through the worst thing that I thought ever could happen to me came the realization of all my dreams. I do all those things, but I do it with purpose. Like, I'm not just on TV to be on TV. I wanted to have a show. Still don't know what I was going to talk about. What I need a show for? I ain't had nothing to talk about.
Right.
But I have a platform and I have a testimony, and I even now, the suicide numbers have went up, even with all the advocacy and people talking about the stigma. It's going up. It's a war. It's a public health issue. I think it's a spiritual war for our lives and our souls. And until we get a grasp on it and get more people like me, and there's more people like me, but we need some we need some Be Inspired. We need some more people out there to talk about it, hit it on the head, repair families. And it's I don't know, faith big time.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. And so if you had to give advice to somebody that's listening to this right now, like they're listening to this and their plans tonight were just to end it. They were just done with life. Like, cause and then they saw this on YouTube, or they saw this podcast, or they thought, okay, well, I'll just listen to it. Cause how God can do that. He can just say, well, just listen to that. Or just, maybe they never even been to church before. What message do you want to tell that hurting soul?
that you matter. You're not a waste of space. You matter. We all have a reason, a time, and a space. And each of our lives affects others so profoundly, even when you think it doesn't. We all have something. And I just say, in order to find out what maybe you haven't found it yet, but to find it, you got to keep living. See, that's the part of life. My mother always tell me, one day you're going to get your place in the sun, but you're not going to get your place in the sun until you served your purpose. And why not live every day, serving that purpose? You matter. I think the biggest thing that got me to attempt suicide was I didn't matter.
Yeah,
I was a piece of trash. I was a waste of space. Why was I even born? And, to be an advocate and talk to people and daughters and sons and kids say, thank you.
Yeah.
You saved my life, thank you. You answered my questions. I wanted to know if my dad could hear me. I wanted to know if my mom could hear me. And through your story, I know they did. To think that I didn't have a purpose. Well, how crazy was that? But that's what I believed. It's a lie.
Yeah, it's such a lie. And God created us, and I love that you said like the blood of Jesus on that joy, because
that's why it had to be red.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why, guys, if you're listening, she's about to tell you how you can get her books, how you can get these good shirts, where you can get all this good stuff, because we're running out of time. So I'm going to turn it over to you. But I love that you said that about the blood of Jesus, because I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for that. And I know that. There's no doubt. And I feel like the enemy makes people feel like they're not good enough, that their sins are too much. And it's like, that is such a lie.
Right there. You just hit it right there. Say that again. Too much. That their what is too much?
That their sins are too much, that they did too much, that they, yes. Like, you don't know the kind of, you don't know the kind of person that I am. And it's like, he died for all of us. All of us. Every single person that is hearing this or seeing this, he loves you just as much as he loves us. And that's what I want to stress, is if you're about to end it, you were created for a purpose. That's why you're listening to this. God has huge plans for you too. And I just want people to know that. In his blood, the glory and joy that comes.
What's that song? What can wash away my sins? Nothing but the blood of Jesus.
Yes. All right, Miss B, I love you so much. Okay, girl, tell everybody how they can follow you on social media. If they want to reach out to you, how they can get in touch with you, how they can buy your stuff. Let them know all that. We're also going to link it below, guys, but we're going to let her go ahead and tell you guys how they can find her.
Okay, so you can find me on all social media platforms at Be Inspired Talk. That's at Be Inspired Talk. And you can connect with me on all those platforms by simply going to bsmith.live. Yeah.
And Facebook
beesmith.live. I mean, and that'll connect you to everything, and you'll see what I'm up to. You'll see where I'm going. I just had a book launch today. And then I had another book launch today, and it's just like, it's awesome. Amazing. And I'm talking about encouraging people to lead, even when you're afraid. Get in the front of the line anyway, and let faith pull you through. And so I am just grateful. This has been a journey that I wouldn't take it back.
No, girl, you're unstoppable. You are unstoppable. And just that one little promise that you made to God, and he has turned that around, and
man, he will get
all the purpose in it. Yes, it's beautiful. I love that. Well, guys, thank you so much for watching and listening. My name is Jody Paar, and you can find me on social media under Jody Paar, JodyPaar. I will also link all the ways that you can find me below. Thank you, B. Love you, girl. Thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.